Good afternoon and welcome to October's meeting of the Coventry and Warwickshire Champions. My name is Adam Dent. I work for Advent Communications. We're a PR and media firm based in Coventry and Warwickshire, but working right across the UK. For the regulars of Champions, you'll notice a slight difference. I'm not at home, but more to that later. As you know, during normal times, Champions attracts 160, 180 businesses to a variety of locations around Coventry and Warwickshire, bringing you speakers who hopefully entertain and inform so you can spread the word about the good things happening in our area. When COVID reared its ugly head back in March, we immediately went online, and rather than bi-monthly, we held monthly meetings, again with speakers who could entertain and inform, but also bringing you vital information on the pandemic from the stakeholders across our area. Probably like most of you in business, that in early March we all thought the online platforms were fantastic. Probably like a lot of you, come a Friday after 5 hours online and you can see the top of your head throbbing, a condition that is now apparently known as Zoom head. So we thought we would try and shake things up a little bit, so we called on the services of BAFTA award-winning Noisegate Studios based here in Leamington Spa, who are bringing this live today from Vitsoe, the furniture manufacturer based in Leamington Spa. For those of you who are regulars of our Champions meetings, this will all be very familiar to you. For those who are new, and we do know there's some people logging on for the first time, if you like what you hear, and perhaps not what you see, but you'll understand that we're becoming a very powerful network, do please speak to Nick Erskine. Nick runs the Champions scheme, which, as you probably know, is run under the auspices of the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP. One of the reasons that we're doing this sort of system today is to try and be more interactive. There are several ways in which you can do that. Please do tweet as much as you can using the hashtag ChampsOct, but also you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen there is a facility, as there is in the other online platforms, for you to ask questions. We're really doing this to get you as involved as we possibly can, so please take the opportunity to fire any questions that I might miss of the guests that we have today. We have 3 guests today. And they've got one thing in common. They've all invested very heavily in Coventry and Warwickshire. One is very local, one has relocated his company from down south to here, and one is based down south but is investing very heavily in the city of his birth. I say we're here at Vitsoe, and I describe them as a furniture manufacturer, but that's a bit like saying Ferrari knock out the odd car or two. Vitsoe has an absolutely fascinating history, and it's a history that is now being written here in Leamington Spa. And I'm really delighted that we've been joined, obviously, as it's his gaff, by Managing Director of Vitsoe, Mark Adams. Mark, welcome.
Welcome too.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Yes, and thanks very much for hosting us. I say it's got an interesting history. Just in a sort of elevator pitch, tell us about the history of Vitsoe, where and how you became first involved.
Well, the first surprising bit with the slightly strange name Vitsoe is that we're an entirely British business. Niels Vitsoe was the founder. He was a Dane and founded it back in 1959. The designs are that we're sitting on and that are around us are by the German designer Dieter Rams, better known for being head of design for 35 years at Braun, so things like Braun watch, but calculator, the influence for the iPhone and much more. So that's where the moving parts come together. But how does it now come to be a British business based here in Leamington Spa? I started in the late 80s importing Vitsoe furniture. A company based in London, and then into the mid-90s, Vitsoe was getting, towards the end of its life, Mr. Vitsoe had turned 80 in Germany and was getting into stickier water.
But Dieter Rams still designing for him?
Absolutely, and so I spent 2 years out in Germany, 93 to 95. We ended up bringing the business back to Britain at that point, and restarting all the production then in London, and growing in London through the 90s and into the noughties. And as we went through the noughties, it was becoming clear that we were going to outgrow London as we went from firstly being an importing business to then being heavily an exporting business. And so we started to look as to where we could go as we outgrew London. We had ever more vehicle movements in and out of London. And we started that search, and Leamington was introduced to us, as others from Cambridge pretty well at the eastern end, right round to Kidderminster at the western end, and we were looking in that arc. and Leamington was introduced. And once we were then seeing, right, well, that gives us the umbilical cord back to London. Our shop is in Harabin, so the station is 7 minutes walk over there, and you walk then to our shop in London. But once we were then being shown around the town and the area, we knew Warwick Manufacturing Group, then you're introduced to the state schools, private schools, universities, colleges, Warwickshire College, etc. And then you get the civic pride of the town, you get the manufacturing background, Frank Whittle. Oh, you then get the gaming area. You know, somebody says Silicon Spa, and Vitsoe is a .com. That's how we sell to 70 countries. We are a .com. So we got the gaming side, then we got the creative side. Up until a few months ago, Motion House were sharing this building here with us. So with that manufacturing, digital, gaming and creative, all the elements were coming together 8 years ago, where we said, looks like we should take this seriously.
8 years, right. So, and explain, just to go back to, so Dieter Ram's designed for Braun, so did he do this sort of moonlighting, designing the furniture?
It pretty well was moonlighting, with and highly unusually, with the consent of the Braun brothers, and what Braun was doing in the late 50s with its electrical work that's behind me, 1956, standing here behind me, was revolutionary stuff. It was highly modern. It was risky stuff, and far too far ahead of its time. So when Dieter Rams went to the Braun brothers with this notion that he would like to work with this Danish gentleman to put furniture into production, their instant reaction was, great, this will be good for the market for our electrical products, because it will make homes more modern. And that's where they were in the late 50s, trying to modernize especially a destroyed German world.
And was there that synergy between the two, between Bosch and the furniture side of it, in terms of, you know, was it good for them sales-wise? Was there a close relationship between the two companies?
The two companies were absolutely distinct, but the design crossovers are many. We don't have enough time, but if you'd like an hour one evening, I can happily take you through that. But for example, the small width of this shelving system behind me, that is exactly the same width as a Braun record player that was designed in 1960. Right. So Rams wanted the record player to be able to fit into this wall-mounted system, and that dimension, 667 millimeters, is still with us today. The record player was out of production 2 years later. Right.
So how does somebody who got a degree in zoology get interested in furniture?
For me, it's completely logical. My time at school, I was in the workshops a lot at school when grown-ups would say to me then, what are you going to do when you grow up? I would say, I'm going to run a company making things. And they'd say, well, making what? And I hadn't a clue, but I was looking for that sliding doors moment. And I was 24 years old when I went into a shop in London, saw them installing this shelving system on the wall, and they were introducing it to Britain for the first time. I got friendly with the owner. He offered me a job. I gave up my worthwhile job in London, halved my salary, went to do that for 5 months.
What were you doing before?
Well, from my degree, zoology, but in the year off before going to university, we'd just joined this thing called the Common Market, so I thought it'd be a good idea to go and learn a European language. So I went to a French university and learnt French, and so from university, it was a headhunter who recruited me because they saw French on my CV and they were opening an office in Paris, but headhunting was absolutely not for me. I was looking for this opportunity, and when it came, and I then jumped on a plane and went and introduced myself to Niels Vitsoe, who was then 73 years old and I was 24. I didn't know he had an Anglophiliac streak. His boss in the 40s and 50s had been a Brit in Denmark, so when this young Brit walked in, little did I know, the door was slightly open for me.
There's been no escape since.
Yeah, but there's a relevant point there as well for Dieter Rams, the young German designer in his 20s, in the 50s, and the designs were starting to get recognition. And one of the first serious awards he got for the Braun products was in 1963, and he came to London to be awarded that. And he was so impressed that as a young German not speaking any English, that it was the Brits who first recognized and awarded him. And when you come to London, of course, there were still bomb sites everywhere. So he felt very embraced that the Brits welcomed this young German. That also counted in my favor.
You talked about the arc from Cambridge across to Kidderminster. Were you courted heavily by these areas for inward investment, or did you do it quietly and just suss it out?
All credit to the local area. This is where the courting went on. We went and looked at those areas, but it's no secret. Chris White, the then MP, now at the Manufacturing Technology Centre, he introduced us here, and then Warwick District Council went absolutely into overdrive to look after us, and it was wonderful that the support they gave us, and then of course Coventry and Warwickshire LEP helped fund this building as well.
And tell us, people can't see sadly the best view, but tell us about the building, sustainability, and what your design requirements were for.
Let's just touch the funding there for the minute, because the only external funding was from the LEP, but the £9 million of funding to create what we're sitting in here today was completely lent by our customers. And that tells you about the relationship of Vitsoe with its customers. If you look at our brochures, all of the photographs in our brochures are from our customers. If you go to March this year, when the virus hit us and we all had that period of April into May going, oh bloody hell, are we all going to survive? We appealed to our customers worldwide to support us. Since the end of March, we've sold to 45 countries worldwide. We've sold to 40 states in the United States of America, and that has been absolutely instrumental in supporting us during the last 6 months.
When you say support, you appeal for them to buy?
Absolutely.
Not to lend, to buy product?
No, to buy, because our customers were already saying, what can we do to help in this situation? Because our customers feel a tremendous sense of long-term loyalty to us, because our customers are with us for decades. So we said the best thing you can do to support is to buy. So 3 weeks after that, an order for $30,000 from Hong Kong, from one of our existing customers saying, well, I was going to do this, but as you're asking, I'm going to do it now.
And I mean this politely, do your customers get slightly addicted? Are they collectors?
Oh, categorically. One quote from one of our customers many years ago, he said, I'm stopping my trips to Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous because of my new addiction, and that's Vitsoe.
So there isn't a Vitsoe Anonymous group yet in the Leamington Spa?
It may be. I'm not a member of it, but it may well it may exist. It may, no, I mean, to be fair, we inspire great loyalty because we're here for our customers. We're not here for ourselves. Vitsoe exists for its customers, and our customers would be mightily upset if suddenly we weren't around anymore, because many have made investments over half a century. They bought chairs like this in the 1960s, and we can now send them replacement upholstery 40 or 50 years later, and they can put it on in their own home, and that, they just sort of, this is amazing. So it's the sort of loyalty we inspire.
And the building? So explain what your sort of requirements were for this, both in terms of design, also
we were invited about a dozen years ago to be a founder member of the Centre for Industrial Sustainability at Cambridge University with Imperial College and Cranfield. And early on there, I floated the idea of just what might a Vitsoe building look like in a zero waste, zero energy world that they were starting to paint the picture for. And there was one seminar there where I painted a picture of just how could it be. And one of the professors came up to me afterwards and said, this is fascinating, would like to hook a few PhDs onto you. So we had a team of PhDs who worked with us through a few years, and then gradually we introduced the construction team. So really this project started as an intellectual exercise. How do you design a building to use as little energy as possible? We're here in natural light, except for some television lights now. Natural light, natural energy, natural ventilation, all of the lessons that came from the Spanish flu, 1918, 1919, where the modern movement came from, well, that was a response to the Spanish flu, that we needed more light and we needed more ventilation. It then became to be seen as a style. Somebody walked in here 3 years ago, somebody very knowledgeable, and after about an hour walking around, he looked at me square in the eyes. He said, "Mark, this is true modernism. It doesn't look modern, but it, for me, is embracing that modernism." And now we go into a virus, and where we've been able to keep our distance here, be naturally lit, naturally ventilated, a lot of the things that actually now we're all seeing, you know, mechanical ventilation in buildings, ooh, we should be a bit wary of that. Open the bloody windows. Here you can open windows above you, all around you, critical.
And you said when I paid a formal visit, you've got rooms here, so when customers come and buyers come, they can stop over if necessary?
Yeah, we're a global business selling to 70 countries. We've got teams Los Angeles, New York, Munich, London here. And when you join as a new employee, you would have a few weeks here. You would stay in the building, be building the furniture before we let you anywhere near a customer. But then equally, anybody around in the UK or beyond can come and stay in here. We have the kitchen over there where you'll be fed from as well. So that's the sense of community for us. And
we touched on when we were chatting earlier about the rise of social media and how you have profited from that and used that as a tool. Explain about you use Korea as the example to me.
Yes, our market in South Korea is very strong. I give you the counterpoint to that. For 10 or 12 years, I flew back and forth to Japan very regularly. We set up a company in Japan. We had our own building. We had our own employees. I've never been to Korea, and our sales in Korea now outsell Japan about 2 to 1. And that has been entirely social media, where the Korean culture is more willing to share, where the Japanese culture is somewhat more private. And so we can see it with people with 10,000 followers get 1,000 likes for a post, and we can see 2, 3, 4, 5 orders come directly from that. And again, that was part of the appeal in March this year, and we went into overdrive communicating via social media. And again, that has been a very important part of sustaining us to where we are today in October.
And how has it impacted on a day-to-day basis for you, the lockdown and the virus?
Well, obviously for everybody, a great deal of nervousness, and we've worked with that. We've talked to everybody, listened very closely, and done our risk assessment. So within here at Vitsoe, we found now a very, I would say, comfortable status quo. But the important part, back into March and early April, and why we're here in Leamington, because being at the centre of our supply chain, and most of our suppliers are within 90 minutes, 2 hours of Leamington, nothing coming from Asia, for example. And when the crisis hit, the first thing we were doing, a team of 3 of us, were in absolutely hour-by-hour contact with our suppliers to keep our supply chain going, reassuring our suppliers that we were going to stay open, that we were going to pay our bills at the end of March. We did. We paid all our bills in full. At the end of April, we paid all of our bills in full. So that for a number of our suppliers, it was worth them staying open, keeping a skeleton staff on to keep supplying us so that we could keep paying their bills, so that they could keep going. And so that community sense was absolutely vital to, again, allowing us still to be here, and that's wonderful. And now preparing, we were pretty certain that a second wave was coming, and we've been working very heavily with our suppliers to be prepared for this. We've stocked up very fully, apart from a hard Brexit coming, but let's not discuss that this afternoon. But again, it has been that close work with the local suppliers to keep going.
Did it cause problem with export at all, or not?
Yes, absolutely. Methods. So, well, right now we can't get anything to Australia. The Australians have limited goods coming in, except for vital, essential stuff. So we've got large orders sitting for Australia going there. So at any time over the last few months, we've had problems of how to get the product out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you said that when Mr. Vitsoe saw a young Englishman walk in and decided he was an Anglophile anyway, that appealed to him. What's the future of a company for you personally? What's going to happen to Vitsoe in 10, 15 years' time? Is some Dane going to walk through the door that you assimilate with and it becomes a Danish company? What's the future?
Well, no. The building in which we are sitting was conceived as an absolutely flexible and adaptable building. We can move any of these beams around, we can put floors in it. We could have 500 people sat in here performing a completely digital role that would allow our customers, Vitsoe's purpose, why does Vitsoe exist? To allow more people to live better with less, that lasts longer. That doesn't mention chairs, shelves, furniture. And that's what our customers really get a kick out of with us. We give them a better quality of life. And how we might have to do that in 15 years' time, I don't know. I mean, I suspect that what we need to sit on things, and although lots of objects that you would store are becoming digital, funnily enough, in the last few months, our business has been strong because ever more people have found themselves working from home.
Of course.
And we have been able to accommodate their changing lives. And so the system-based thinking of what we do at Vitsoe is there to accommodate the unexpected changes in your life, a coronavirus being one. And we've been able to respond to that. Heaven knows what it looks like, but because of that really flexible, adaptable thinking, I would hope that we'll be able to accommodate it. But we're honestly completely open-minded as to what Vitsoe might look like in 15 years.
And you're recruiting, I noticed.
Thank you. We're recruiting heavily from cabinet makers, web developers, full stack developers, logistics expert, a finance director. We are absolutely looking for our dear finance director, who London based and was never going to move to Leamington and has stayed on to keep us here. So that's a vital recruitment. But no, we are in the very fortunate position in this environment of needing good quality people. Good with these things and got a good one of those, that's all we need.
Mark, that's been brilliant. Thank you again for welcoming us in here. You're very welcome, obviously, in Leamington. Glad it's assimilated so well. Been really interesting to hear about it, I'm sure. Haven't had any questions for you, so we're saying about interactivity. Please do fire any questions through. But Mark, for the moment, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.
And I should just say it's precisely today, the 3rd anniversary of the opening of this building, 14th of October 2017. I happened to notice this morning. So very fortuitous that we're all here. Thank you.
And where does the time go? It's frightening, isn't it? Mark, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Our next guest you would have heard from before because, to be perfectly honest, he has more hats than the average milliner. Ian Harabin is the founder and a director of Complex Development Projects. They're a development firm who develop across the UK but are very well known, especially in Coventry, for developments such as Electric Wharf, Priory Place, Far Gosford Street, Fargo Village. Ian is also the founder, you will remember, of the historic Coventry Trust. But he's here today to talk about possibly his most high-profile development to date, again in Coventry, and that's a transformation of the former headquarters of the Coventry Telegraph building into an 88-room hotel that is now nearing construction completion. Ian, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So why a hotel? I remember last time when you spoke to Champions, you just got Coventry Historic Trust off the, or Historic Coventry Trust just off the go, and you were saying you were snowed under, you were very busy, and then you bought a newspaper office to turn into a hotel.
I think being here and just listening to Mark actually is so inspiring and what kicks me off. You know, this building is designed by a furniture designer, and it has all that attention to detail of a very fine piece of modern furniture. Coventry has some incredibly fine modern architecture, which is what makes it unique. Its post-war redevelopment was leading the world in that strive for a new tomorrow, a new hope, a new land where we all live in peace, a new prosperity. And within that came the architectural styles of mid-century, of the post-war era, and of Vitsoe. And quite interesting, I didn't realise Vitsoe were founded in 1959, which is exactly when the Telegraph building was built. And the understated style of Coventry Precinct, Telegraph Building, the Belgrade Theatre is stuff that is a quality that has, I guess, been lost through our ghost town era, through the era where everything got a bit decrepit, the investment wasn't made in the city centre, and we lost touch with that hope, that vision of the future, and also the quality of what we had, which is, you know, Le Havre is, in France was redeveloped at a similar time, and that redevelopment is now a World Heritage Site. Coventry is smaller, but arguably better. It's certainly in brick rather than concrete, and yet it's called the concrete city centre.
But it's funny, perhaps in certain areas, and you think of Corporation Street where you're developing, had that ghost town time not happened, much of that might have been cleared because 50s architecture went out of fashion. So in a way, that's been a benefit.
It saved it, and in many ways, the Telegraph building, when we went in the first time, was a time capsule. You know, the reception desk, the boardroom, the terrazzo floors are exactly as they were when the building was built in 1959. And, you know, I took Lord Iliff round a couple of months ago, whose grandfather founded the Telegraph originally, and who, as a young man, you know, in his 20s, took over operating that building from the early 60s. And, you know, he was just so excited it was going home because it was a time capsule of the past. And when we decided to build this hotel, to take the Telegraph building on, to save it, which was the first step, because
was that the starting point, that you thought it was in danger, and you?
The first step was a trip to Newcastle Gateshead with City of Culture, and I was sitting there with Joanna Reid from the Belgrade, and said, you know, we desperately need a top-end, different quality hotel in Coventry, I said to Joanna, what's happening to the Belgrade? It's been sitting there empty, to the Telegraph, it's been sitting there empty for ages. And she went, it's still empty. And 3 months later, we'd agreed to buy it madly, without a scheme, you know, with a short lease from the council. But I guess with that mad vision and passion, that we'd make it work, because it was just such a good idea. It was so much what the city needed, that working with our partners at the council and combined authority in the end, that we'd be able to deliver it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Mark talked about support from the LEP and from Warwick District Council, both examples of priming by council that these developments would not happen without that sort of attitude.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I've been working in regeneration with government money for 25, 30 years now. And I think what happened in the past was a lot of it was all about numbers. So it was just producing housing numbers, producing industrial space. It didn't really matter what it was. And I think the recognition in the last 5 to 10 years is that actually to compete nationally and internationally as a region, we've got quite a lot of the average, but we need the excellence. And, you know, this building for industrial excellence, I don't think it'd be beaten in Europe. I'm not saying our hotel won't be beaten in Europe. I think it most probably will. But, you know, we're certainly trying to make it hugely special.
But not a simple structure deal to put it together. Explain how you've managed to fund it through the development at the rear.
Well, we acquired 30-year odd leases that Trinity Mirror had from the council to a series of, to the main Telegraph building, but also some bits of land at the back. The idea that I had, because the hotel in effect costs twice as much to build as it is worth when it's finished, so that by capitalising on the student housing demand at that time, we could actually package together the land at the back, acquiring 5 other ownerships, all at risk, which we did without CPO, and then restructure the whole lot with the council to take new long leases, using the receipts then from the student housing to cross-finance the hotel. So that was the core of quite a complex transaction. And then within that still wasn't quite enough, so we got a grant from the combined authority to help it along and a loan.
Yeah. And you got the deal at the back away before COVID, and what's happened?
Yeah, we structured all that in February 2019, I think,
right.
and kicked off. We wanted to get started. We wanted to be complete in time for City of Culture as it was originally starting in January. And we've been cracking on ever since. So, yeah, nearly finished.
And I said to Mark, elevator pitch from you of why people should visit the hotel. What is it that makes it, you know, in an identikit world that we live in, what makes it different?
It's a lot of things. I have to say what we've tried to do is to get the essence of Coventry and put it in a bottle and turn that into a hotel. For people that don't know the city, we are telling the story of Coventry as to why it is special in the building where all the news of the last 50, 60 years was written and produced, but also telling the story of the building as well. So the design of the building changes from actually a very original, but obviously adapted. The original reception is now the bar. We've roofed over the inner courtyard, which is now this fantastic restaurant. And we've created a new reception area with brand new laid terrazzo, high quality walnut panelled walls, and I've been eBay shopping. I've brought in, I've been told to stop about 10 times, but I've bought 18 flying geese from America that have been flying over and keep arriving in singles and doubles. The singles I get, I sit there on eBay and feel sorry for Eric, the goose, because he's on his own, so I have to bring him over. But so that sort of front of house area, we've very much tried to capture and recreate where it wasn't there, the real glamour of 50s Mad Men, almost like a Mad Men set. And then as we go back into the hotel, into what were the industrial spaces, there's a far more industrial and modern design bits go on, and there's lots of art going on, there's lots of quirky things happening as well, so you know, really kind of interesting place to be.
I know from experience, if you converted the reception into a bar, it would have saved the journalists a lot of walking. And when I was there in the 80s and 90s, I mentioned this to Mark. Have you become a bit addicted by this 50s thing? Because I've noticed it spreading through your...
I think you have.
Well, I have, and your brother said to me, "Oh, Ian is buying more furniture again." Anyway, and then I noticed your brother's bought a 50s drinks cabinet. He said, "I'm not letting Ian have it in the hotel. I'm going to have it in my house."
It's too nice.
So has it become a real... Do you go anywhere and not look for 50s furniture now?
No, because I don't go anywhere. I think it's a style that is very much in tune with even the flat that I live in, which I converted about 15 years ago, is still very simple, modern wood, brickwork, plaster. I've always been interested in design and furniture design, and when we travel, we very much go to look at the post-war and modern design elements through to today. But you know, last year we went over, a year before we went over to Argentina, and you know, we desperately wanted to go to Brasilia. To see all the architecture there, and you know, we would make a trip to somewhere just to see the architecture and furniture design. But yeah. So.
And even when you say about raising the bar in Coventry City Centre, you said that the day you signed Bespoke Hotels was a sign that that had happened because of the quality of their estate, and they hadn't moved into Coventry.
Yeah, Bespoke runs some, you know, pretty top-notch hotels. They're a good quality operator, and they certainly haven't been anywhere near Coventry City Centre before. I think Coventry is a hugely changed place from a decade ago. The demand is there, and the higher end demand is there, and you know, with my other hat on, you know, to be almost about to sign up a Michelin chef to come to Coventry for a Michelin-starred restaurant is not something we would have had a sensible conversation about 10 years ago.
So you're not reopening Fishy Moors? It's not that.
I wanted to do that about 15 years ago. I actually almost set up a new company called Fishy Moors, but somebody else had done it.
Right. Do fire in, please, if you've got any questions for Ian, as we say on the interactive thing, please do fire them in. We'll put them to him. Have you enjoyed it, the process of the hotel?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been maddening. It's been passionate. It's been angry. It's been everything. But it's been a hell of a journey. I mean, the interior designer, who you think would be my best mate, we both call each other our nemesis. So we have a healthy sparring, and conversation this afternoon is, I'd like to put some wire pin legs under this, and I go, oh no, it should be something else. And
what about work? Lots of people who are viewing this will be in family businesses. What's it like working with a sibling, and how do you divide? Are you similar? Are you different? How do you divide up tasks?
I think
he's listening, by the way.
I think with Brian, I think we see our differences, but actually, when we get down to it, we're actually very similar. I guess we're two peas in the same pod, but slightly different.
I was hoping that would spawn a question from Brian. I was saying, any embarrassing questions, Brian? Just fire them through. He's probably too busy to listen today.
Yeah, I guess I'm more a purist, and I really want to make everything as good as I can possibly get it, even though that isn't entirely practical all the time. And so I guess it's age, but we've kind of learned to give each other a bit.
And I mentioned that obviously you develop across the country, but you've got a big major project on the doorstep here in Leamington. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Creative Quarter. We're working very closely with Warwick District Council. It's now starting to move. There's been a lot of pre-planning and consultation work, working with the local community and creative businesses about how we regenerate the old town area, the area beyond the bridge, effectively. The amount of property to go at has always been very limited because the council has limited ownerships, but the first projects now are getting worked up and coming in for planning, which are around Spencer Yard, which is just the other side of the bridge from the Leamington pump rooms. To open that up to, dealing with all the challenges of the other organisations that are there already, but to open it up as an event space, but convert the 3 buildings that have been sitting there empty for many years into digital and creative office space. So.
Similar to, is it a similar project to Fargo?
No, well, each project's different, and each project pulls in a bit of the others. So I guess probably a mix between Fargo and Electric Wharf, probably. It's a bit more officey because it's for techie offices. Probably less creative than I would want it to be, but at the end of the day, if we don't get it to stack up financially, it isn't going to happen. And obviously, we're in challenging times for doing that.
Much more challenging to convert a building than new build, I presume. But you always seem to go, or majority of what you do is that. Well,
yeah, but Abbots Lane with the linear park that we're just starting in Radford will be on, just next to the Radford Road Island on the edge of the city centre will be new build. It is more challenging, but you actually get to carry a piece of the city's history with you. It's kind of much easier to make something different with something original. It's very hard to build a building today with all the rules of compliance and everything else and actually give it character, and I think that's what I take my hat off to Mark for doing. This could so easily have been an industrial shed, and it takes a huge amount of work to actually break that mould of restriction.
And lastly, what do you do with all your spare time?
Well, you mean the 30 minutes between when I sit down and watch the telly and fall asleep?
Yeah. And you would want, I presume, everybody's listening to come and have a look at the Telegraph Hotel when it opens. It's going to be something.
No, I want each of them to book a corridor of rooms for the next 6 months.
Right, but hopefully we can hold a champions meeting there sometime in the future.
I think hopefully. It isn't just a hotel, and if it was just a hotel, I'd tell you. I really hope that people will come down and actually see and feel a piece of history. And not just the passion that's gone into it, but the stories that we're telling of Coventry, because I think it's part of the visitor journey and part of bringing fresh people to Coventry for City of Culture, the hotel will already tell them a lot about that city before they go out. And I think that's worth seeing.
And it's obviously hinged to a certain extent around City of Culture. Do you think the hotel in itself will become an attraction?
Yeah, well, it's what we set out to do. If we don't, then we haven't achieved my aim. You know, you know, would you go to Morecambe? No, and I don't know anybody that would, but I know a lot of friends.
Sorry for anybody from Morecambe.
That have been up to the Midland Hotel there, which Urban Splash did. You know, you actually go and stay in a building, and in many ways, I think, you know, I'm not saying that people will be coming from Penzance to come and stay for the weekend, but if you are looking at coming somewhere in the Midlands region, it will be hopefully the hotel that I would stay in.
Brilliant. Ian, thank you very much as ever. Thank you. Ian Harabin. Again, like Ian, our next guest has spoken at Champions before. Nigel Shanahan came and spoke in 2017 about his company, Rant and Rave. A lot of water has gone under the bridge, and just to show you what we're talking about before Nigel joins us, we're just going to show a small video.
At 1 Mill Street, Leamington, we're here to help you. Not only find your new normal, but help you work better, smarter, and most importantly, stay connected. Enjoy spacious co-working, exclusive access to our podcast studio, and grab fresh coffee in-house. Business changes fast, but we're flexible like that. Make Mill Street your permanent home, your weekly drop-in, or just your workspace for the day. And set over 3 floors, space to social distance isn't a problem. 1 Mill Street, Leamington. We're smart co-working with a heart.
Nigel, welcome. 1 Mill Street. We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that in a bit. But since we last saw you, so you came and talked to us about Rant and Rave, the company you'd founded in the year 2000. Very briefly, explain what it did, so for people who weren't there at the time.
I've forgotten actually. It was a software company that was either for customer feedback, and you were either ranting or raving, and it was allowing the customer to say it in their own words with their own emotions, rather than a survey.
But it is no longer yours, so explain what's happened since we saw you on the Rant and Rave front.
Yeah, well, I mean, we back in 2017, I think I did a Champions event. I was in dialogue then about an exit of some description. I think it was prompted by a friend that in a curry house. We were having a few beers.
Where all good ideas start.
All the good ideas are hatched there, yeah. And he sort of said, "What's the exit plan?" I didn't really have a plan, and we got onto a fairly morbid conversation about falling off the perch and would you be entirely fulfilled and happy in life, and I decided on the spot really probably wouldn't be, and that I needed to do some other things and freshen up, and hatched the plan from there really. And he was a non-exec, so he was a friend and a non-exec, and he helped me put together a sort of a plan to to sell the company.
But it's one thing having a plan, another one executing it. So what was the exit and who did you sell to?
Yeah, well, we used a firm that helped us position ourselves in the marketplace called GP Bullhound. They were brilliant, and we decided that what we wanted is I wanted a clean break, really. I didn't want to do an earn out or anything of that nature. So we approached them, and they set about sort of positioning us into the market, and we talked to lots of private equity houses, and we also talked to some trade organisations, some other software companies, and see if there was a match up with what we had and what they had. And in the end there was. Upland acquired us in October 2018, and it was a very clean cash-based transaction that was had a good, I think, financial return for a lot of employees as well as our family. Yeah. And it made a lot of sense to them, and I'm pleased to say that it's it was good for us as well.
Did you miss it? You know, a lot of people, all the energy goes into selling and leaving, and then the next day you sit up and you haven't got anywhere to go. And
it's a really good question. I didn't miss the business. I missed the people, and I still miss the people a little bit. You know, I'm glad to say that lots of us are all in touch, and that's fabulous. It's probably one of the things that I hold on to the most. Is, you know, it was a good transaction, but actually we were like a large family or a tribe, and we actually are still, you know, in great contact, and I miss those. Other than that, I don't miss the day-to-day of the business thrust. That was hard. The customers were great, to be fair. They were all ravers.
Right, not ranters. But but it's interesting, having heard from Mark and from Ian about the sort of dedication it takes. I remember about 3 weeks after your sale had completed, I walked through Kenilworth to get to the station at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was your light on and you were sitting at your desk. So did you take time off?
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Somebody broke it in. No, but what did you do? Did you go away on a holiday, or?
We did actually go on a cruise. First time ever, and that was a beautiful trip, and that was a bit of reflection on what next. But I think the same person who'd said to me, you know, what happens when you fall off the perch, also said to me, don't take too long, you know, move into something, you're that type of person. And so so Mill Street and Make Good Grow were born,
but
really.
Explain to people, you went for a walk in Leamington, didn't you? And that was a bad mistake. Explain what happened.
That was expensive.
Yeah.
That was an expensive walk in the park.
Yeah. Explain what happened to people.
Well, it was a Sunday afternoon, Jefferson Gardens, with my wife, Desi, and we were talking about the next stage of life, and we were talking about Make Good Grow, which is this concept of volunteers and causes and putting them together, and that was the next project. And in Jefferson Garden there was a building about 200 yards away, which was known as Urquhart Hall. We've renamed it One Mill Street, but Urquhart Hall, and I said that's a beautiful building, and that's the sort of thing that we could have for Make Good Grow. And we wandered over to have a look at it, and it got a plaque that was about 1905, Lady Sarah Urquhart had bequeathed it to her daughter for use of the community, and I thought it was a really nice thing. And it got a sold sign on it, and there was a planning notice underneath that had expired. So I said, I'm just going to phone tomorrow morning, and phoned, and then the trouble started really, because they said, well, it came back on the market an hour ago, quite literally, and he wanted to know if I was a time waster or not, and then when I sort of assured him I wasn't, he said, well, I can tell you...
When you explained what you sold Rant and Rave for, it probably concentrated his mind slightly,
I would imagine.
I'm only joking.
So we viewed it that afternoon and bought it later that day, agreed terms on it later that day.
With a clear vision at that stage?
No vision whatsoever, unfortunately.
I thought you had it all mapped out.
Yeah, frightening, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, we walked into the building. It's, for those that don't know, in Leamington Spa, this building is, it was known by everybody as Urquhart Hall, and it was being used by the Sikh community as a Sikh community centre for about 50 years. And pretty much everybody that knew Urquhart Hall, you know, I met my wife here, I did bingo here. It's one of those type of places where lots of people had used it. And we thought it would be really nice to do something that would be community based, but something that had a business aspect to it. And the concept of One Mill Street really was born out of that, but it wasn't a strategically planned project, no.
So explain first of all about Make Good Grow, and then about Mill Street and how those two come together.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Make Good Grow was, it's a philanthropic thrust, which is all about the concept of lots of people want to probably volunteer, and lots of time you can do the most benefit, you can be of the most benefit with your volunteering when you use your skills, your business skills. And if you can direct them to your passion, to things that you're passionate about, causes you're passionate about, even better. Even better if you can time box those things so they're project based, because we all know with volunteering, lots of people desire, they want to do it, but they are worried about overcommitting to something and then not being able to follow through. So the concept of Make Good Grow is dating for good causes. It's a volunteer, charities saying we've got a need and I've got a skill set, and matching those up, but doing it in a time boxed period. And then we actually shine a light on the project, look at the social impact it's caused, and then actually sort of tell that story so that other people can see it and say, well, I could afford to do just half a day of that, and I've got this skill set, and that's Make Good Grow.
And then how does that fit into Mill Street? Explain what Mill Street is.
Yeah, well, Mill Street is a 13,000 square foot building that has got offices inside of it for rent. Everything's on very flexible terms. So you know, in business, what I feel is that you often are overcommitted to leases and things like that. So these are offices and co-work, which is where you rent a desk. Rather than rent an office, you can rent a desk, literally a desk. But it's collaborative. Everybody in there is part of a business community. There are events that take place there. There's a podcast studio in there. There are meeting room spaces and event spaces. And we're trying to do something on a small scale that we hope is sort of doing business a completely different way, and quite an inspiring way. You know, it's quite a beautiful building, and hopefully we've brought it really back to life. And hopefully it will inspire business people to thrive in there. Make Good Grow fits into there because we've sort of got a do well, do good philosophy for the building. So if you're a business person in there and you want to do some volunteering on a time box basis, then you can through the Make Good Grow team that will be in the building. And
you businesses are in now, or what stage is it at?
Yeah, well, it's we opened the cafe, which is the Muse. So it's a very well-known cafeteria that is moving into Mill Street, based in Leamington, and that's going to be open on the 26th, so a week on Monday, right. 26th of October. We've already got pretty much 2/3 of the building signed up, people signed up, which is fantastic given the situation we find ourselves in, and this is a shared space.
Well, and I was going to ask you that when you're approaching companies or they come to you, has there been a reticence because of obviously space is the thing that's most valuable at the moment? Is there a worry about that in people's minds?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some anxiety, Adam. I think some are, they thrive on social interaction. They know that collaboration and networking and possibilities and innovation take place when people meet. So they know that we're going to pass, and lots of those with that sort of foresight have committed. Others quite, rightly are more nervous, so they're excited by the project, but they're going to take their time. And some people are coming in on a light membership, which is £99 a month, gives you 5 days of co-working, so you can still work from home, but it gives you a place to have meetings and get that social interaction that we're all craving. So I'm really pleased with the progress, because I was a bit worried about the investment that was Mill Street, and then actually sort of supporting it every month because it was sort of failing. We didn't want that to happen, so hopefully not.
And successful people rarely sit still. What's the next project after 1 Mill Street?
So I've got Mill Street, Make Good Grow. We are building a house in Spain. That's a bit of a crazy one. Right. Yeah. And I've invested in a company called Social Supermarket. And the amazing thing about Social Supermarket is I invested without actually meeting the people, because it was all through Corona. Right. So we did everything on Zoom, all the due diligence and the conversations and get to know the team. But Social Supermarket is like Amazon. It's a place you can buy products. But everything's got a social impact story through there. And the 3 guys that run it are brilliant. They're Warwick University graduates as well, which is wonderful. And I hope the very best for them, because it's another do well, do good sort of approach.
If you need some furniture for Spain, we know somebody who can get you some without.
I know him as well.
Right. Nigel Shanahan, thank you very much. Thank you, Nigel.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. To all our speakers, I hope you found them interesting, illuminating. Just makes me feel a bit Warwickshire when you see how hard they work, and the link clearly from that to success. Since we last met, we've got some champions who have signed up to join us, and we're going to hear directly from them.
Hi, my name is Yuri Matishin. I'm the Managing Director of MLS Contracts, and we're really pleased to join the Coventry and Warwickshire champions. We're joining because though we're not a Coventry-based company, we're based in the city of Sheffield. We've been working in Coventry and the region and the West Midlands for some 20 years. And we look forward to staging 2 particular major events coming up in the next couple of years in the city of Coventry. The first of those is the International Children's Games in 2022, which will follow on immediately from the Commonwealth Games in the city of Coventry and the West Midlands. And secondly, we look forward to coming back and restaging the 2023 British Transplant Games in Coventry. So we look forward to getting to know you really well and promoting these 2 fantastic events in the city of Coventry.
Yeah, hi, I am Alan Denier of AWD Restorations and AWD Creative Projects, and I have just rejoined the Coventry and Warwickshire Champions programme, and I've done that to make sure I'm super informed about everything that's going on in the region, so that particularly when City of Culture comes along next year, I can be telling the world about all the great stuff that's going on in Coventry. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deepak Nayak, Executive Director of Together in Action Trust. I am pleased to become a member of the Coventry and Warwickshire Champions. Together in Action Trust creates and delivers projects to help maintain harmony in and between communities, promotes intergenerational activity, and honours and celebrates our great city. A home, a neighbourhood, a business, and a city that is at peace with itself is well placed to attract business and prosper, thereby increase the quality of all of our lives.
Thank you to them for joining the Champions Network. As I said earlier on, if you've enjoyed what you've heard and you're not presently a member, please do look up Nick Erskine's details online and do drop him a line. Since we last met, obviously Coventry City have kicked off in the Championship. Congratulations to them. And Wasps just last weekend qualified for the Premiership final coming up in a couple of weeks. Congratulations also to them. Events forthcoming that we want to alert you to. Rising, which is the 3-day Peace and Global Conflict Resolution Symposium, is happening largely online in Coventry in November. Please look at rising.org for that. The Chamber Annual Conference, which as you know is one of the major business events in our region, happens in November. This year it is online on November the 11th. Please go to the Chamber website for details. And then later on that month, we are hosting, or we're part of, the Midlands UK Forum for Growth, which is right across the Midlands Engine area, where we're going to hear from council leaders, business leaders, investment specialists, really making us aware of the opportunities there are right across the Midlands Engine, including in Coventry and Warwickshire. So please do look out for details for that. The next Champions meeting is going to be on December the 9th, when we have a very special guest. Her name is Linda Jackson. She's an Executive Vice President of PSA, which is Peugeot Citroën. She is a Coventry lady originally and is, by common consensus, the most powerful, influential female in the automotive global industry. So please do keep across any announcements we're going to be making about login details, etc. And also we'll be adding some guests to join Linda. I have to say, Nick, credit to him, has been chasing Linda for so long that we are awaiting the court order, and just before it landed, she managed to say yes. So he's not been arrested yet for stalking, cyber stalking, but it may well happen. Thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Thank you especially to Mark and the team at Vitsoe, who have been really accommodating of us making a mess and lots of noise and what have you. Really fascinating story. Thanks to Matt and the team from Noisegate, and also to Kat, who's been working here on the technology. Thank you everybody for joining us. And as we always say, please make sure you tell somebody something positive about Coventry and Warwickshire. Thank you.